Hello YouTubers and welcome back. In this video I'm looking to make some sort of a table I can attach my 9-inch grinder to, so I can use it as a chop saw. I can take it on and off when I please, just for cut some decent 45s and 90 degrees in various bits of steel, box section, round bar and so forth. So for the main arm I'm using a floodlight bracket which will screw in both sides to the existing handle holes. So the holes that the handles are screwed into, they're M14, so I'm just doing a cleared and straw bit there for a 14mm bolt. So I've got some long bolts there, so they just need a bit of chopping down, and then a bit of a tidy up with the grinder on the buff wheel. I'm using a piece of glass here to do all my marking and setting out. I need to know how long the arm's going to be now, so I can chop it down. So first thing is to make sure it clears the guard on the grinder. I want the arm to be as short as possible, just enough so I can get away with the clearance of that guard, like I say, and the hinge system as well. Obviously the shorter the arm is, the more accurate the cut's going to be. So I'm just putting everything in situ now. And I'm just marking that off now, ready to chop that arm down. So I'm drilling the second hole now. And with a quick clean up, get rid of all that galvanise. And we'll get this bracket set up for welding. So I want to put a weld now on the inside of this bracket as well as the outside. But first of all I'm going to put a piece of threaded rod through, because when I weld that inside, the heat from the welder is going to try and pull that bracket in. So this is just to stop it pulling in. So I've chopped up the rest of the bracket now to make the box section at the back end of the arm that the pivots and the hinges or assembly is going to be welded to. So the actual pivot is a piece of 16mm threaded rod, and the pivot sleeve or the hinge, that's a piece of 3/4 airline pipe. So again, I'm back on the glass now, just making sure everything's level, because when I come to weld that hinge and pivot system, I want it to be 90 degrees to the actual cutting disc itself. So as you can see, I'm making full use of that floodlight bracket. There's not a lot left. So let's get it chopped down, ready for welding onto that pivot. So now I'm welding it onto the main arm now. So now that's all welded up nice and solid, it's moving on now to make the actual table itself, or the bed. It's all going to be fastened. So I'm using, well, electricians use this stuff, and plumbers, mainly on industrial and commercial jobs. It's called Unistrut. So I had a couple of bits knocking about, so I'll utilise that. So I've got that all welded up now. So I've got to make a couple of little pillars now that spindle or the pivot can actually sit into, and they're going to be welded to that big flat bar at the top there. So they're the little pillars done now, or the little posts. So we'll just give it a quick try and see how it fits. And that should work just out perfect. Look at that, brilliant. So before I can actually get this welded up now, I've got to make some sort of mountains in that Unistrut, or that framework underneath that bar there. And I've got a big piece of flat bar there. So I'm just going to tidy the sides up so it just slides in nice and snug. And then what I'll do is I'll chop inch pieces down and weld a nut to them, something like a 10mm nut, and then I can weld a nut to them, and then I can actually screw the bolts into that then and bolt it all down. So they're all welded up now, and just putting this little spacer in so it raises them up a bit, so the bolts actually reach the nut underneath and they slide in quite nicely. So this is a piece of stainless steel sheet for the actual bed itself. So we get this bolted down now, and then get the main bracket, main arm lined up, and let's get it ready for welding. So as always, prior to welding, I always clean off whether it's galvanised, rust or mill scale, whatever. I always clean off prior to welding. I weld with flux core, MIG wire, and I use stainless steel filler wire, flux cord, and also mild steel flux cord MIG wire. So now that's all welded and bolted on, I'm cutting the slot out in the bed. Also, prior to this, I've tightened up the nuts on that threaded rod on the pivot between the sleeve and the threaded rod, just to take out that little bit of play that might have been there, which was a tiny bit, but now it seems to be nice and square, and I'm happy with that sound. I'm marking out now for the 45 and the 90-degree guide rails. That's the work that I'm going to be cutting is going to be sat against. I took this old bracket from an old fireplace. I'm going to use this for my guide rails. So I've cleaned them up now with a flat disc. Not too mad, just quick clean up, and then get them marked up, ready to drill that plate out. All these 10mm nuts and bolts are all stainless, and they fix the floodlight onto the floodlight bracket. This stainless steel plate I retrieved from an old stainless steel tank. So with the final clean up now with the flat disc, I can cut the slot out, or the clearance slot in the back rail. I've also got this guide rail set up in such a way that when the actual grinder comes right down and actually touches the bed and the disc is worn, I get maximum cut out that worn disc. I can't get any more. That's the way that guide rail is positioned there. Right from the centre pin of the grinder to the face of that guide rail, I'm getting maximum cut. I'm just putting the 45 guide rail in now and just checking all my measurements and angles and make sure everything sits and fits correctly. So on with the first cut now. I've not made any proper or a proper clamp for it. I just plan to use G clamps on this. And also there's a 3mm cutting disc in it, which is a bit big, and that's why it looks like it's labouring a bit, but it's okay for the test. I'm using this pipework or this box section for the job, so that's why I've had to carry on doing what I'm doing. So there you have it. That's the 90, and that'll do me. That's not going to give me any issues welding two pieces like that together at all. So it's nice and square all the way around, ready to weld up to the next piece. Marvellous. And here's the 45. No gaps in that whatsoever. Absolutely perfect. So I'm well happy with that. Job well done. So just for the purpose of the video, I've changed the cutting disc now from a 3mm down to a 1.9mm. The wall on this stainless steel pipe is about 3.5mm. So, and I must admit, it just flies through it a hell of a lot easier. It doesn't labour as much, and it gives me a nice clean cut. And there you have it. Nice clean cut. Cut quite quickly, so that'll do me. This is a piece of 4-inch angle iron, 4x4. It's also about 8.5mm thick. Now I'm not going to cut all the way through it because I haven't got the depth. I can only cut to a depth of 3 inches, and this is obviously 4-inch angle iron, but it does cut quite easily. I'm just taking my time with it. Now, one of the main reasons why I've built this is so I can actually easily store it away. My workshop is not that big. It's not a massive workshop, so sometimes spaces are quite limited really. So at least now, once I'm done with me cutting, I can unbolt the grinder from the table and I can easily store it with the table away on one of my shelves in the workshop, and it won't take up a lot of space. So that's the end of the video now. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm sure you'll see this little chop saw in future videos. Thanks for watching.